Camp. I'm David Laietta. I am one of the organizers of WordCamp and WordPress Orlando. I have been working with WordPress for close to 8 years now, and I've been working with Genesis for probably 3 or 4 years now. So I started out, I run a custom web development firm, Orange Blossom Media, and mainly focus on custom theme and plugin development. When I started out with WordPress, it was specifically to save time on client site development by having a lot of tools already built in. Starting with pre-existing themes was mainly a necessity. I didn't know how to build themes at the time, but it eventually morphed into a way to save time on smaller projects. So I tried a lot of the theme frameworks out there, and I eventually settled on Genesis because of the very active community, as we can all attest to being here. And I decided to develop my own child theme for a similar reason, knowing that I was going to reuse a lot of things over and over again. I decided to build something that I could just copy and paste into each new project. The most important thing for me was that it kind of gave me a place to start from. So if anyone here has ever stared at a blank page and had a writer's block, you can probably feel the same feeling I have when I'm thinking of starting a new client project and can't figure out what part I should start with. So the combination of WordPress, Genesis, this child theme, and then a few plugins that I use quite frequently on every project, gets me halfway to the project just by setting up and installing them, which it's getting a lot easier to do now with all these different provisioning services that allow me to just spin up a new staging site very quickly. So I'm going to give you a quick tour of my theme and then show you where you can find it online. So first thing, I have the theme set up on this site right now, and the only other thing I've set up is I've installed Gravity Forms, Jetpack, and then I've also put in some test data from wptest.io. That's some great folks that used to run 8-bit who put that together. It's just a bunch of edge cases, a lot of posts, a lot of pages and content and users built in, just so I have something to look at when I'm starting a site. So this is what it looks like with just that setup. You'll see there's not really much going on here. It's kind of boring, but that's not it's not specifically to have a pre-designed site. If you go and look at the StudioPress library of sites, you'll see that most of them are just a few functions changes along with some style sheet changes. So the real power comes from being able to change the layout just using CSS. So whether a beginner or advanced developer, you can quickly spin up a new site that looks entirely different than another one just by making a few tweaks here and there. So I want to just go through the code of the site very quickly. So it's the child theme here, and I'm just going to do a quick run through of all the folders. First up, we have some CSS files. I'm using Font Awesome to control custom social icons or icons for the mobile menu or anywhere that I need some custom icons. I don't have to go recreate them for each site or focus on any hacky sprites with background positioning and things like that. I can instead just load this font as I would any other font, which I have all the web versions installed already, and make use of it on the site. We can take a look at the Font Awesome library. See, there's over 500 different icons already available, so I can, for instance, have my social media like Pinterest all the way to those mobile menus, or if I need to have certain arrows on the site or representations of things, I have a whole library to choose from, and I just have to come and find whatever the name of that is and just call it in my styles. I also have a style sheet ready for any Internet Explorer only CSS. I'm also controlling that with Modernizer, which we'll get to in a moment. And then I have a login file that has some login specific code. So just changing how that looks. Right now it's mainly default, but it's here to quickly change when I need it, and that's the main thing. Most of the things you'll see on this theme are default, but they're going to they're going to be set up already, so I don't have to go and find the proper function or find the proper action or filter. I already have it here. I can just edit it. The only image I have preloaded is a favicon. I have it called in the theme functions to point here as opposed to pointing to the parent root directory. This may not be necessary in the future when that's implemented in WordPress core, as they've suggested might be in the next version. But until then, I have that here. I also have some JavaScript files already pre-placed in here. So one of them that I use quite frequently is gravity form placeholders. Any third-party files that I'm using, I have linked where you can get them and make sure they're all up to date. So this one is specifically to take gravity forms and change out the text, the input text, and make them placeholder text. So gravity forms does have placeholders now built into version 1.9. And it'll look something like this. You have, the fields, and then you have some placeholder text. And I can control that in the gravity form. But what it doesn't handle is removing the field name from above. So there might be times that, I want my form to look, for instance, as it looks on my site, to only have information inside of the field. So I don't need the name field above because I have it as the placeholder. So I'm using that script to do that, and it can clean it up quite nicely. I'm using Cider for mobile menus, so that's just a way to have a slide-out menu on a site. And then I have Modernizer with any of the functions that I think I might need to convert, this great-looking Chrome, Firefox, Safari, whatever site, to work with older versions of Internet Explorer. I couple that with that IE CSS file to make any changes that I might need. And then I have a scripts file that I use to contain any other random scripts that might be specific to each site. So again, I have a bit of code that's mainly placeholder code, just a sample to show you what you can do. So for instance, one I use quite frequently is making sure there are certain click effects that work well on mobile, making sure that it stops bubbling up too much. So if you've seen a mobile site that doesn't really work well on mobile and you have buttons that might not do anything or might accidentally click multiple times when you touch them, I try to have something ready to go to avoid that. So I can just take this code, copy it, paste it, and then put in whatever additional code I need here. I also have some responsive viewports ready to go. So you'll notice that, or I'll get to in a moment, but I have ways to control responsive viewing of the PHP, JavaScript, and CSS on the site to just, again, load things only where they need to be loaded. So by default, I have this Cider menu coming out under 960 pixels, and then I'm also changing the Gravatar for comments. And that's it. It's, again, an empty file that just has the bare bones here that I can toss in whatever code I need to. I don't have any language files because these are generally customs for a specific client, but I have it ready to go with some with the locale set up in the functions for when I need it. And then I have a library of my PHP functions, which I'm going to skip ahead and jump back to in just a moment. So front page setup, right now it's not doing anything, but it's there when I need it to just start adding and removing actions. Single page, again, is using the default post info and post meta returns here, but I have the functions set up to control those filters. So, for the many times I do want to change how this looks on a site, I can just come in here and edit it as I need to, as opposed to having to go either remember and rewrite this function each time, or go find it and then copy and paste it into each new site. So that's the driving factor of this. We'll see it more in these functions files of having this information ready to go and just toggle it on or off. So you'll notice that most of the information is being called in separate files here. That's just have a separation of concerns, but I have a lot of theme support already built in, menus, sidebars, and I have this set up so I have each bit of code. Even if I'm not using it, I can just toggle it on or off when I need to. So an example would be these widgets and sidebars here. I can just quickly go in and change these footer widgets to 2 and turn off this home hero widget. And it, it's updated, ready to go, and that only took me a moment just to comment that out or change that one number as opposed to having to find everything and rewrite it. I also turn off the Genesis widgets by default, but I can toggle any of those back on, and I can let you peruse this at your leisure, but there's a lot of other things going on here. Some featured images built in, changing the link type, changing it so that non-admin users can only see their own files that they've uploaded into the media folder, and a bunch of other functions that are ready to go just to toggle these. Again, just toggle them on or off if I want to make use of that feature or not. So here's all the files that have those separate concerns out there. By default, I'm turning off all meta boxes on the dashboard for all users. to clean it up just a bit. So, besides the Gravity Forms one, which isn't default, I have it cleaned up there. And then for non-admin users, I have the admin bar, all of the links for the admin bar ready to turn off, all of the sidebar links, or just the ability to turn off that admin bar entirely. So here is a non-admin user. And you can see I have all those links turned off, and if I went to the back end, I would have nothing appearing there. Or I can just turn off that bar entirely. Or, again, if I want, I can just comment out these and different things and remove only the ones I want to remove, but at the very least I have them all ready to go right now. I also have the back end developed by just a little link setup, and removed some of the Genesis features I don't use very often, like the SEO box, or changing layouts on taxonomies. I don't really want my clients to always be able to do that. The ability to change that login page, again, change the style sheet and change the titles there. Setting up the child in its own file, all of the scripts and styles that I'm using, and then I have a place to load all of the functions on the site, and then that mobile text script. So it's a great way just to start out. I start out most of my projects this way with this now. It's a great way to start out without having to reinvent the wheel every time. You can find this on my GitHub page, and the easiest way to get there is to type obm.io/genesischild, and it'll direct you directly to that page, and I'm going to have that link in the show notes. Thank you all very much, and enjoy the rest of Genesis Camp.